So again, it goes back to having so much compassion for yourself, that you're healing your lineage forward and back, especially if you're dealing with bones, because our lineage shows up in the bones.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Medicine Stories podcast, where we are remembering what it is to be human upon the earth. I am your host, Amber Magnolia Hill. This is episode 69. Today I'm sharing my interview with Rupam Henry. Rupam completely changed my life 10 years ago at the Northern California Women's Herbal Symposium when I took a class from her on holistic dental care. I learned so much. I had known nothing. It changed my daily practices. It helped my family out. And I'm so happy to bring her to you today. Just a note that this interview was recorded in April, 3 months ago. It's just taken this long to get it out to you. Between working on our Herbal Homestead YouTube channel and everything that's been going on in the world, and the death of my father-in-law, Grampy Mike, almost a month ago now in a car accident. Things have been intense. Many of you will remember that my mother died the same way in 2015. So it's been really hard and heavy and heartbreaking and still very much in it. We'll be in it forever. Grief lasts as long as your love for the person who's gone lasts. And this is something I will talk about more in the future. But thank you for being patient with us, especially those of you who have placed orders. So there are 3 Patreon offerings. 4, actually. There are 4, but I'm combining 2 of them into one post over at patreon.com/medicine stories that go along with today's conversation, which, as you will hear, it's very long. It's the longest conversation I've ever recorded. And then we recorded a bonus once we were done. And it is so full of information. I tried my best to put everything in the show notes, rather than doing a teaser like the 5 things to do. I actually wrote out the 5 things that she says to do because it's so much information. But if you really have dental issues, I suggest taking your own notes as well, because I definitely didn't write everything down. Or, take a screenshot of the timestamp when you hear something you like, if you're at a stoplight or something, because this is a lot and it's just information that's not out there in the world. There's so much information on herbal and holistic healing for the rest of the body in books and podcasts, but the dental health really is not as much. I think because there's so few people who live at the intersection of dentistry and herbalism and holistic health the way that Rupam does. So the first 2 posts are for patrons only, but it's only at the $2 level, of course. And then the 3rd post is going to be for everyone. You don't have to contribute anything to make this podcast work to access that one. So the first post contains a download of a chart that shows the correspondences between all the teeth in the mouth and the organ systems that they have a direct pathway to. You'll hear Rupam and me talk about this in the episode. Very useful. Very, very useful. In that same post, there is a 10% off coupon code for Rupam's online herb and dental health shop. And that will only be available, though, for the first week after this podcast releases. So check the date of the release, and it'll only be available for 1 week after that. If you're listening in the future, the coupon code will not be there, but the organ system / tooth correspondence chart will be there. The second extra is a bonus conversation that Rupam and I have about the liver and liver health and liver cleansing and fasts. And she just talks about how she does liver cleanses. I talk about my experience with fasting. She gives us some insight into the physiology and functioning of the liver. It's really, really interesting, and I'm super grateful for her taking the time to enlighten me on that subject. That bonus just grew out of our conversation, and it was already so long that I was like, we have to end this podcast interview. But once we hung up, I was like, but wait, I really want to know more about how you do your liver cleanse. So that's how that came to be. And then the third post that's open to everyone is 2 giveaways in one. So one person who enters this giveaway will win a personal one-on-one dental health consultation with Rupam, which is $125 value. And I am positive that after you listen to this, so many of you are going to want to talk to Rupam directly, because of course we all have our own personal issues going on. And I did a consultation with Rupam after I first met her 10 years ago, and that was super helpful. It was about my partner at the time's oral health issues. And then we talked a few weeks after we recorded this conversation because I had something else coming up. And she's just, as you will hear in this interview, a wealth of knowledge and practical suggestions for what to do. Keep in mind too, since only one person will win this giveaway, that you can pay for a consultation with Rupam, and it is well worth your time. The information is all at her website, of course, links in show notes. The other person who enters the giveaway will win one of Rupam's dental kits. It's a $65 value, and it includes her 1-drop only dental soap, which is the only toothpaste I will ever use for the rest of my life. It's amazing. Her daily dental rinse, which is so much better than any other mouthwash you are ever going to use. Dr. Tung's floss, which is her favorite brand of floss, and her stain removal kit with a bamboo toothbrush. We do talk about all of these products and how they work and why they are such superior alternatives to what you can find in any store that you go to, but including natural and health food stores. So much of what's on the shelf, even that are like natural, organic, still have harmful ingredients, and we go into that in this interview as well. So much to learn. I know, so much to learn. I want to let you know that our St. John's wort oil is back in stock at mythicmedicine.love. We stagger our harvesting of that plant, especially over about a month. And so that means we are also staggering when we strain and bottle and list them. So when you hear this, it might be sold out, but it will be back in soon. But if you hear this too far in the future, it might be sold out until next year. Just check. But we made a lot more this year than we've ever made because it sold out in 3 months' time last year, which just swept us away. And we were not expecting that at all. So check that out there. Also, our Queen of Heaven and Earth breast oil has been restocked with rose petals, dandelion blossoms, and violet leaves. And our As the Witches Teach oils are also restocked with yarrow and mugwort. So that's all there at mythicmedicine.love. Okay, Rupam comes from an ancient lineage of medicine makers, alchemists, and herbalists reaching back 13 generations in Germany. She is the owner of Rupam's Herbals LLC, an herbal apothecary with approximately 40 organic formulas on the market. She combines her expertise as an herbalist and holistic health educator with her professional experience of over 20 years as an RDA in general and pediatric dentistry. Her expertise is to shine a light on the interconnectedness between the mouth and the rest of the body, mind, spirit, making oral health truly a diagnostic tool. Her focus is on prevention. Rupam provides her clients with personalized home care protocols as they journey through the often overwhelming world of dental materials and procedures. Ever felt overwhelmed after hearing what the dentist tells you is wrong with you and what your options are? At a young age, Rupam traveled to India, where she lived for 5 years at an international ashram, learning meditation and Eastern approaches to the inner world. Rupam is also an ordained minister through the Center for Spiritual Healing of Marin County. Her passion is to sit with fellow journeyers of all walks in a space of presence, investigating together anything that touches the heart and spirit. Her mission is to support people on their path back to their innate balance and health. She listens for any underlying disturbance and supports clients to work effectively toward their own well-being. Tools include herbal remedies, diet, education, and processes facilitating inner work. Okay, I think I failed to mention that the giveaway end date to enter is July 31st. So get on that, patreon.com/medicine stories, and just settle in. You're going to learn a lot. It might be overwhelming. Listening twice, I'm sure, is something a lot of people are going to need to do, or just, pace yourself. Okay, let's get into this amazing, info-rich, life-changing interview with Rupam Henry. Okay, hi Rupam. Welcome to Medicine Stories. I am thrilled to have you here. You deeply changed my life 10 years ago when I took a class from you at the Northern California Women's Herbal Symposium, and I've always had you in mind to be a guest. So I am just honored and thrilled to be talking to you today.
Same for me.
And you just said this sentence right before we hit record about the ancientness of herbalism and women making medicine. So let's begin with something I've always remembered you talking about in that class, which is your ancestral lineage and how you came to be working as an herbalist.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy lineage, my lineage. It's all in Germany. And we go back both on my dad's side and my mom's side. We go back to the 16th century. We have a lineage tree, a family tree. And we are right now 13 generations of medicine makers, alchemists, herbalists, and of course now it's called pharmacists, in Germany. Right now we have 33, I think, living pharmacists right now in Germany. And I grew up in my grandfather's apothecary. And at that point, I'm born in 1961. So at that point, every pharmacy apothecary had a kitchen in the middle of it. And I know from my grandfather's pharmacy, we had hundreds of herbal bins. And he pretty much made everything by hand still. So we had a doctor living upstairs, and people would come down and bring their prescription. And my grandfather would say, okay, come back tomorrow or whenever. And then he would go into the kitchen and make it. And that's just amazing. And
that's
I remember,
so amazing.
Yeah. And he was an avid gardener. As much as he could, he would just take off and just puddle around in the garden and putz around. And that was really his true love. And so his love for plants came through that. And then both my parents, that's how they met. They became pharmacists. And when they went to school, their finishing exam was still all herbal. So they had to go out in nature and look for particular plants and write down everything they knew about the plant. I mean, I think it was 250, and I had to write down including complete paper on everything, the usage, how to make it, what you could do. Unfortunately, once they started practicing, it was pretty much pick up the phone and order from the industry, because the pharmaceutical, big pharma pretty much had made its entrance.
Mm. No, go ahead.
And I remember as a child, at this point, I think I was maybe 4 or 5. I remember already then thinking, whoa, I am so not interested. Uh-huh. What do? You just pick up the phone and order something. I mean, I remember that as a child, that was my sudden feeling of what that was turning into. And I was no longer interested in going that direction.
Wow.
And when I was 16, I actually started a pretty intense spiritual path, ended up in India and lived for 5 years in India. And my spiritual path then also brought me to America. And that's when I had this dream that I needed to go back and pick up my lineage, my ancestry and medicine making.
Like an actual dream?
It was an actual dream. In fact, in my dream, I was told, I don't know exactly how that went about, but I was told that I would die the evening of that day. And I remember I wasn't concerned about that. The thing that I was concerned about was I saw all these little bottles, like those brown amber Boston rounds, lots of them, and that I still had to label them and that I still had to finish my job kind of thing.
Wow.
And when I came out of that, it was like, oh my God, I have to go back into medicine making. I have to pick it up where my grandfather left it off. And that was about 3 years into my dental career. And so if somebody had told me that I would spend 20 years in dentistry, I don't know what I would have done. Because 2 years into it, it was like, oh my God, this is riddled with holes. We're not giving people any kind of real answers. We're just doing drill and fill when it's too late, And I remember then going back to school and becoming a holistic health counselor, coming back to school, doing flower essences and everything that I didn't or wasn't exposed to through my grandfather or my family. And started my career actually with Karen Sanders. We're talking over 25 years ago now.
Was that in the Bay Area?
Yeah, when she still lived in Oakland, exactly. And I did 3 years through with her. I would drive every week twice. I would see her through everything. It was a full 3 years, I think. And her and I became friends. And there was this incredible story. This is really how we became kind of more endeared to each other. Do you remember when we had 7 planets in wait a minute, it was 7 planets in Earth. It was in May. And I was in her class at that time. So this must have been early 2000s, I think. And I did a spagyric tincture out of burdock. So I made a tincture on the day of 7 planets in Earth. And it started glowing, like literally like emerald green. Like I thought, oh my God, I totally messed up. Like, what did I do kind of thing, And I brought it to Karen. She has a wicked sense of humor. She goes, I'll take it. I'll take it from you. I can do something with it, And then she just shared with me that literally only once in a lifetime has she experienced where spagyric tincture turned into this otherworldly expression. And that was just that I must have nailed it completely. Yeah.
Or like you were being rewarded for heeding that dream and the call of your ancestors.
Exactly. It was like it didn't even feel like it was me. It felt like something else came through me that I wasn't even completely aware of yet,
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing gift because it was a confirmation that I was on the right path as a person, that I had a proclivity for it, but also that it was my love because I absolutely adored burdock at that time. I mean, every year I'm kind of going completely in complete love with a plant, And that year it was burdock. And that plant to play with me like that and come out the other end with this very different kind of expression was amazing.
Yeah.
It was like, so it just confirmed that I was on the right path. That's all I can say somehow.
Well, what does 7 planets in Earth mean? I don't know much about astrology, but I feel like I've never heard of planets being in Earth.
Okay, got it. So 7 different planets, I guess, and I don't remember which ones exactly, but it was Venus was in Taurus. And
in Earth signs. Okay.
Earth signs. Yeah.
Which makes so much sense with burdock because it's so earthy. It tastes like you're eating the earth in the best way.
Exactly.
And is a root.
So, and that's what I learned with Karen Sanders. She's Choctaw Indian, and she learned from her grandmother to harness and make tinctures basically with the moon and the planets and where things are and the time frame. So that was one of my first experiment with what she had taught me.
Wow. I want to go back to the apothecaries turning into pharmacies, because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people maybe don't realize that the same thing happened in the States, that,
Oh, yeah.
pharmacies used to be compounding pharmacies where you would
Yeah.
take in your prescription and the person behind the desk would have knowledge of herbs and would, get their
Yeah.
mortar and pestle out.
Yeah.
And there was something like in the last year where they're trying to shut down the last few remaining compounding pharmacies in the States to just get herbs completely out of the American medical pharmaceutical system altogether.
It breaks my heart. I mean, I remember when I was a teenager and I saw both my dad's and my granddad's pharmacy changed, like updated. Everything suddenly was all white, and very clinical. I remember I cried my eyes out because that was also my home. I grew up in it, We lived upstairs and there was literally almost like a sliding stairs down into the pharmacy, into the apothecary. And it was just this magical place. And I remember I cried and cried and cried when I suddenly looked at this all white, modernized, unrecognizable place,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like, aside from the individual feeling of loss in your home, it's like you were probably tuning into this bigger impulse of like the world changing and moving more away from the earth and nature.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think that's why we are, as women, especially that are called to do this work, we are so important, because I feel like we are bridges back to nature. We are basically harbinger or voices for, let's support the body with something that's natural, that it can recognize, to come back to a more balanced whole health. I think that is one of those big pieces that I feel is so needed.
Yes. Yes. And why so many of us are feeling called right now to do this.
Yep. Yeah.
Where in Germany was that?
This was more southern. My dad's pharmacy is in Freising, which is about an hour away from Munich. And then my grandfather's is about 4 hours from Munich towards the Rhine, Würzburg. The Rhine is very known for its wine. It's a particular size of bottle, particular shape of bottle. So it's really a wine area where my granddad had his pharmacy. Mm-hmm. But both of them southern.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how did you get called into dentistry, and what has that path been? What are your credentials? What's your experience there?
Okay. God, I mean, initially what called me was almost luck of the draw, except I don't believe in coincidences. I wanted something. I knew I was very health oriented, and I had just come from India and spent up in Oregon a couple of years in my part of my spiritual community. And then it was the first time for me to actually work in what we call the world. And I wanted something that I could do anywhere in the world. And so when I looked around and what I needed to do to make an entry into something, dentistry crossed my table, my board. And I thought, okay, let's start. And I ended up going into the field here in Sebastopol with a doctor that needed somebody that was doing basically all the instrumentation and the sanitizing and basically the backup girl. And I started doing that. And within, I would say few short weeks, we all realized that I had really good hands for it. And he said, you know what? Why don't you go back to school and get paid for what you're doing? Because he allowed me to do a lot of things that really I needed a license for. And so it took 2 years. You can go to evening school and not full-time school if you have worked 2 years in an office, which I did. And then I did pretty much everything with night school and weekend. And by 87, I had my RDA-EF, which is Registered Dental Assistant with Extended Functions. And I pretty much did everything except actually drilling or giving injections. But I did everything from making temporary crowns to cleaning children's teeth up to 18. So I became pretty much full on, and many times I would work on patients by myself. And I realized in terms of helping and supporting people, I felt like there were so many pieces missing. And I was clear on that literally by the time I had all my licensing. And I was like, wow, we have no answers. We're just filling and drilling and telling people they need to brush and floss. And it was obvious that that weren't all the answers that were really helping. I mean, people brushed and flossed beautifully and still had cavities and still had gum disease. And why? My training and school gives you no answers to that, and that's when I went back and said, okay, I need to find out more. And that's really when my holistic health career started. I went back to school in 1993 and became a holistic health counselor. And shortly after that, I had the dream and I went back into medicine making and plants. And I would say it felt like I was still collecting pieces to make a collage that then I would use to support people with. And so what I am right now, what I'm really left with is, of course, the whole herbal pathway, holistic health counseling in terms of detective work for the person, what lifestyle works for them. And then, of course, I have worked the whole being in the office and seeing hundreds and hundreds, and at this point, probably thousands of people of what works and doesn't work for them. So at this point, I call my business Holistic Health and Dental Solutions, because once you start opening up through the mouth and see what's going on, it goes right back to health. Mm-hmm. And then it's detective work to finding out what isn't or is working for the person. And that's why it shows up a certain way in the mouth. So really the mouth is a guidance or a diagnostic tool really of what's going on in the person's health. Mm-hmm. What's going on in their even mental, what's even going on emotionally for them, what's going on spiritually for them. It's really a very big picture, and flossing and brushing is a small piece of it. You still have to, of course, brush and floss, but there is a much deeper investigation that needs to go on to truly become healthy in the mouth, so to speak,
Wow. I remember you blew my mind when you talked about that in your class. I had no idea. My parents had good health insurance. I had been going to the dentist every 6 months my entire life.
Yeah.
And I do think I got some sort of like genetic luck in there. I've only had 2 cavities in my life, both when I was pregnant. So I had never really had like dental problems that I had to think about. And when you talked about how it like the mouth is connected to the rest of the body so deeply, and it's like an opening, like an entryway, I think of it, ever since then, like if there's problems in the mouth, they're going to go into the body. And I've heard so many stories since then, like, especially if I'm sure it goes so far beyond, but when someone's telling me like my husband's gums are looking like this, I'm like, oh my God, what's going on with his internal organs if his gums are like that?
Right. I mean, truly, if dental professionals, in my mind, were educated correctly, we would be one of the first people to see when the immune system goes down, or when the pH and the alkaline acidic balance is off, because it pretty much shows up in the mouth quickly in the gum tissue. Cavities is a little different. Cavity is I always call it like, it's a little bit like the Titanic. It takes a little bit of a chronic, continuous inflammation, acidity level, adrenal going into fight and flight for a while for it to really show up. That's true for all bones. But when it comes to gum tissue being inflamed or receding a little, or you suddenly having real intense sensitivity, that's the immune system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's heard about like the pH balance and how that's important in the body, but can you tell us more about that and how the mouth is involved in all this?
Yeah. I mean, that's why we do hear so much about alkalizing, eat alkalizing foods. It's very important because, so to go back a little bit, in anthropology and also in a deep holistic health, in Ayurveda, in Chinese medicine, we say really where the focus needs to be is on the environment. meaning there's a tree, and to not focus on the branches and cutting off the branches, but where we have to focus is the roots and where it gets its nutrition and all that. So the same with the mouth and the body. If you have the immune system going down, there's lots and lots of things that get impacted in terms of how it shows up in the mouth. Sure, there is gum stuff happening, meaning you get maybe swollen or red gums, And I know up to now, and even now in holistic, I've been listening to a lot of holistic dental seminars online, and they're talking about, the oral bio, in terms of what's going on and bionome and going on and what you could do. And what I think is we're still needing to go back to the basics, which means the environment is the most important thing. Meaning, if you have a pH balanced, a neutral pH in the mouth, and hopefully acidic pH in the urine, if that balance is correct, then bacteria in the mouth, and viruses for that matter, can't really get a stronghold. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So really the focus doesn't need to be so much on bacteria in the mouth. It really needs to be on what do I need to do that my body is kind of in this sweet spot where it's humming along and it doesn't have too much inflammation. It has everything that it needs in terms of nutrition, minerals, vitamins. The liver is not too stagnated. I mean, all of this is going to show up in the pH balance. And one of the coolest things you can do, it's not totally accurate, but you can get a sense, is to get pH strips. And first thing in the morning, pee on one and write down the number of that. Take another strip, and this is before you brush your teeth or drink water or do anything, and measure the acidity or the alkalinity in your saliva. And then please take 2 strips. Somebody yelled at me because I didn't make that clear. Mm-hmm. So 1 for your urine, 1 for your saliva. And the saliva ideally is 7. This is where you need to be pH balanced. Mm-hmm. This will show you a bit of a deeper level. The urine needs to be pH acidic. There's a lot of miscommunication and understanding out there. It needs to be around 5.8. You're hopefully secreting acidic waste. Oh. In a lot of these packages, it says you want to be 7 in the urine. That's wrong.
Oh my gosh, that is so good to know, because I actually was testing my morning urinary pH about a month ago pretty consistently, trying to get it to 7, eating all the veggies, eating all the greens, and it just wouldn't get there. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's a misunderstanding. The pH needs to be 7 in the mouth, and that's an ideal picture. So if it's a little less than that, it's fine. And actually, if it is 7 in the urine, often that can indicate is what we call switched pH. That actually is an indication that the kidney is struggling. Mm. And it's often an indication that the toxins are recirculating because the kidney isn't peeing them out correctly or not fully.
Wow.
And that often is also a sign that you're too acidic. So when somebody is, say, eating McDonald's 3 times a day, which I don't come across a lot of people that are doing that, but if that's what was going on, I wouldn't give people things like liver stimulants, like the Swedish bitters. I would more say start out with a tea that's alkalizing and mineralizing. So you are not going to recirculate your toxins. You're going to start peeing them out. Otherwise, people can get really sick.
Oh, gosh, I feel like there's so many things to talk about. I think probably one question a lot of people are going to be having, because there are so many different ways like oral health can go wrong, is what if someone is really like in a crisis situation right now, or they know their mouth is messed up? Like what can that person do?
The mouth is your first entry. It's your first part of the digestive system. So for me, what I tell people when they are just freaking out and they're going, whoa, what am I needing to do right away to help myself to turn this around? I go, focus on the digestive system. In holistic health anyways, we say everything starts there. And when it comes to dental problems, it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. So one of these amazing things is drink celery juice. I know a lot of people have heard about the celery juice. I've been on it now for 5 years, not every single day, but a lot of days in a week. And what that does is it does a lot of things, but it also rebalances hydrochloric acid. The reason that's so important for oral health is at night, if your digestive system is struggling.
So that's in the stomach.
Yes. Yeah.
Not the lower down intestines. I noticed that so many people just think the stomach refers to the entire digestive tract, or they just use my stomach when they're talking about, their whole digestion. So we're talking about the actual stomach that's connected to the mouth through the esophagus. Yes?
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, in my mind, all of digestion, but one of the first things, if you're in a crisis mode, what you have to balance out fast, especially if you're getting cavities, is the hydrochloric acid balance. Because what happens at night, and you won't even know, you won't say, oh, I have acid reflux. You will never know. When you're sleeping, a little bit of the hydrochloric acid, like acid reflux in the worst cases, comes back into your mouth. And it's like battery acid in your mouth. So it draws minerals out of your mouth, out of your teeth. And not only that, it's even worse if you are having, say, a dry mouth, either through medication or genetically. Now you even have less saliva to protect your teeth. So the first thing that people need to do is to make sure, get your hydrochloric acid back in balance. And celery juice is amazing for that.
Oh, wow. Great to know.
Yeah. And the other thing is, in digestion, is if you're pooping only once a day or even less, you're constipated.
And only once a day.
I know. I used to go because I used to be really constipated. Pooping once a day was like, yay.
Yeah.
And only since I've started this whole thing with celery juice and shifting my diet somewhat, I have been pretty much pooping twice a day. And ideally, like real ideal is like pooping after every meal. But I would say twice a day is as ideal as most people can come. Some people do more. Then it's sometimes, especially if the form is really loose, it can be a lot of heat in the gut. So any gut problems have a deep effect on your whole oral cavity, really.
And it goes both ways, right? It's just like an open channel of communication going both ways.
Yes. And the other thing is, this is where the immune system comes back in. So not many people know that teeth, the enamel isn't a closed structure, okay? It is formed with millions of tubules that are actually open to the mouth. So imagine your tooth not being a closed, literally like plastic where nothing goes in and out. It's actually millions of little tubules open to the environment. Now, when the immune system is nice and strong, the fluid pressure goes from the inside out, meaning there's always a positive pressure pushing out through the tooth. And especially if a tooth, of course, is still alive, it has oxygen, it has blood flow, it has lymphatic flow, and it's all pushing out. Now, the moment your immune system goes down, that fluid pressure through the tubules is starting to get a little weaker. And what happens is then stuff like acidity and bacteria can come into the tooth more. And that's basically the first step of a cavity, because you're losing minerals faster than you can rebuild. And when you have your immune system lower, also often what can happen is that your system starts to get more acidic. So it's at the beginning of a situation that if it goes on chronically, let's say for month and month and months, you can then have things like osteoporosis, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and also bone loss and cavities. Everywhere there is bone, it can hit you. And then where we're going to is where it hits you is your personal imbalance of what I call the energy centers. In India, we call it chakras. Then it has a connection to also the emotional part, the mental part, and where you are off balance a little bit. Then it hits you where you are, quote unquote, a little bit off balance. Like if a person has a hard time speaking their truth or keeping their word to themselves or others, then that links to what I call the fifth chakra, which is your mouth and your throat. Is that, are you following?
Yes. I love how you are breaking your word to yourself into that too.
Definitely. That's why addiction has a big part in the fifth chakra or the fifth energy center, So because there's a lot of people, they say, well, I eat all this junk and I have all this going on and I have no cavities. And when I dig a little deeper, he goes, I'm getting a hip transplant. So where it hits you then is a very person-to-person story.
Yeah. So his is in his second chakra.
Exactly. He was very comfortable speaking out, and he was also a public speaker, So it then shows up in a different place. For him, it was more the first and the second energy center. He had more things to go on around that. And that's the deep piece as well, because if there is trauma in the body or abuse or something like that, and you haven't been able to heal it on a more cellular level, it opens you up to imbalances that hit you in the chakra that is connected to whatever has gone on in your life's journey, So in my mind, when it comes to the mouth, it's just like open up Pandora's box or the can of the worms, to go like, where is my detective work? Where is my spiritual work needing to take me to help myself to bring balance to that area? So telling somebody to not have sugar or that's just a very small entranceway into something that actually isn't that easy to do.
Right.
Because if you tell somebody to change their diet, that might be their comfort or their zone of trying to deal with what's going on trauma-wise. Then immediately we're talking about addiction and addictive behaviors and habits, and they need so much gentleness and care and slowness. So nothing goes very fast, So again, it goes back to having so much compassion for yourself, that you're healing your lineage forward and back, especially if you're dealing with bones. Because our lineage shows up in the bones.
Wow. Yeah. So I was just wanting to move more towards bones. And I know you speak about this connection between adrenal health and bone health, which includes the teeth, of course.
Yep. Yeah. Which goes right back to, if you're in a fight and flight situation, if you're constantly pushed either through food or through trauma or through, anything going on in your environment, if that pushes your system into fight and flight chronically, basically your body cannot absorb minerals into bone. The system is in its wisdom, is going to take out minerals faster than you can rebuild. That's why one of the biggest things that has an influence on the mouth is financial stress. It's fight and flight. It's survival, right?
Yeah.
So you can see how when it comes to just the mouth, it's just an entry into your entire lifestyle journey pathway. And in my mind, if we don't have a spiritual practice that kind of holds us, it's really hard to heal in a way that your fight and flight isn't chronically activated when stuff starts to touch you.
Which is just so many of us. I mean, I've really been tracking my cortisol peaks and when I go into fight and flight, and it's multiple times a week.
Yep.
Like I feel good if I get through a whole day and I'm like, I didn't have that happen to me today. I stayed calm. I'm breathing normally.
Right.
And I just think when so many other people have it so much worse than I do.
And also, what's going on around us. we are not apart from the world. We're not apart from our other people around us. I mean, especially if you're sensitive, you're going to pick up right now, you're going to pick up a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. And if you think, oh, that's me, it very much, especially for sensitive people, it probably isn't just you at all. We're picking each other up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So becoming aware that your experience might say very little about you personally is another way of holding it in such a way that we don't take it so personal. It's not like, what am I doing wrong? It's like more like, wow, being really soft-hearted, having a soft belly towards, okay, we're experiencing this. It's okay. It's okay. Don't take it so personal.
I like that. Soft belly.
Yeah, soft belly of just feeling it. And I mean, I recognize, and I've been on this path since I'm 16, I recognize how strong this habit is of moving away from things that are uncomfortable. It's almost instant, It's like wanting to remove ourselves from anything uncomfortable. And what would it feel like if we can stay with it and with just a really soft belly and breathing into it and going, okay, if it's hard, this will also pass, It's all changeable. How would it feel if I can just hang in there? Because what that does for us, we can hold more space for ourselves and we can hold space for other people if we can hang in just a little longer with the discomfort. Our whole American culture is all like, let's get off it fast, Yeah. I mean, it's literally how many appliances can you turn on at the same time when discomfort comes up?
Mm-hmm.
And I know for myself, like I've been more of an oral comforter. So I'm very aware of how easily I want to grab for something that's just taking the edge off, and how much it takes for me to go, can I just be here, even if it's just for a couple of seconds? Can I just feel into this? Because it makes you a deeper person. It makes you able to actually enjoy more. It's a high price to pay when we run.
Right. And when we numb.
It's a high price to pay, and any person with habits that says, man, I did it again. For one, be really, really soft with yourself. And how much awareness can I bring into the mechanism? Because it's just a mechanism. It's not me. It's a mechanism that plays out the same for every person. It's just what they use is different. The intensity of how they use might be different, but it's the same mechanism for everyone. And that's a big piece when it comes to oral health. And when we run a lot, it starts to show up in your bones as well. Mm. And when it's hard to do this, and when you just keep in mind, you're gonna heal your ancestry going back and forward. Whatever you can heal in your structure, in your system, you won't pass on to your children.
Thank you.
So the bones are huge, and what shows up in the bones and to tell you the truth, everybody is going to have problems in the mouth at some point in their life.
Yeah,
it will, because there's only so much you can do at some point. So if it's been going on for a year that you're working with something and you're suddenly showing up with cavities, have huge compassion for yourself, because you're working it, but it might just not go in such a way that you don't get the cavity or that you heal the cavity, which can be done. You can heal a cavity.
Right.
But so many pieces have to come together. So if you're not able to do that, oh my God, it's like holding yourself like a little kid,
Yeah. Thank you. I feel like I'm just like receiving your wisdom transmission right now, and I'm grateful for it. But there's a few more things. I want to come back to the healing, the cavities. I want to come back to go to your home care protocol. But first I want to talk about viral overloads.
Right.
So I'm going to read a sentence that you wrote, and then I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to let you speak on it.
Okay.
So your sentence is, viral overloads can literally create any disturbance in our system. Nerve irritation, aches and pains, sleeping disturbances, gum disease, cavities, anxiety, digestive issues, including hydrochloric acid imbalances, adrenal issues, etc. So anyone who's listened to the previous episode to this with Nadine Artemis would have heard me already say this very shortly, but I started following a woman on Instagram. Her handle is organic_Olivia, because people were sending me her way because her parents had COVID-19 at the very beginning of the crisis. She's an herbalist on the East Coast, and her mother got admitted to the hospital right away. She took care of her father for a few days, and then finally the ER said they would take him too. He needed to be, under intensive care at that point. But she really kept him alive those few days. And once her parents were both in the hospital, she really dove into deep research, and she was sharing all of this on her stories. It's all on her highlights on her page if people want to check it out. But she came to really see a connection, and she has linked to all sorts of studies. She has had all sorts of doctors write her and be like, yes, I'm seeing this too, that the pneumonia that often comes with viral overloads, the bacterial pneumonia, is very linked to the oral microbiome. Not at all surprising, and especially Prevotella bacteria. So she has just been putting up slide after slide after slide, making this connection between the Prevotella bacteria that often causes pneumonia in COVID patients and influenza patients, and the oral microbiome, and how that bacteria can be totally overgrown there. So that just has been blowing my mind. And she's got hundreds of thousands of followers and people who are really paying attention to this connection that she's making. And again, there are scientific studies on all this. So, basically the conclusion is if your oral microbiome was off before you caught COVID, you might be much more likely to develop a severe case of it. Does that make sense to you?
Totally. Absolutely. And just to link it a little different, I hear, and this is one of the things that we are really finding out, that the bacteria in the mouth is a sign of something, and makes sense, right? And in my mind, it goes back to, if you can keep your environment, meaning your body, mind, emotion, in a pH balance, which means your whole system is on a sweet spot, bacteria and viruses can't go nuts. They can't. It just can't happen because it's not the environment. For bacteria to go really crazy, and viruses too, there has to be quite an amount of inflammation in the body already. If a virus or bacteria, even if, say, what's going on right now in the world, if a very sweet spot, good immune system, pH balanced person gets, gets in contact with this, the likelihood that it's a fairly mild case and the body is going to deal with it is really high. But if somebody is showing all this bacterial activity, to me, that's a sign that there's probably quite a bit inflammation and acidity going in the system, which makes the body the perfect breeding ground for this to take off in a pretty intense way. So does that make sense? Does that fit?
It absolutely does. It's driving me crazy. All these mainstream news outlet headlines and articles that are talking about the discrepancy and how hard this hits some people. And they're we just have no idea why. Well, maybe we'll never know. It's of course, it's the terrain. It's the terrain of the body is what's at play.
Exactly. So for me right now, if somebody really wants to holistically protect themselves, of course you want to take the vitamin C. Of course you want to take the zinc. Of course you want to wash your hands and do all the protective measures. But cut down and cut out coffee right now. Cut out drinking like crazy, Cut out anything that makes your body really acidic and creates a ton of inflammation, That on a really deep way, where I feel what you can do, instead of freaking out and being totally afraid, make sure you give your body so it can fight back. And that comes also with the whole oral thing. One of the things when people ask me, what are the 3 things you can do to avoid cavities? Giving up caffeine is a huge one.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Because it drops if you say, for instance, you have your cup of coffee and a half an hour later, pee on a strip of the pH paper, your pH is going to have plummeted for sure. Luckily, if you can drink nettle and oat straw and spearmint to bring the acidity, kind of neutralize it. But if you're somebody that drinks it every day, 3-4 cups, your system is going to be pretty acidic. And that's like a nice breeding ground for bacteria, for everything that loves that kind of environment. Oh. The other thing is, I just lost my train of thought.
Your 3 things to prevent cavities.
Oh, yeah, my 3 things. The other thing is rinse your mouth out with water. Do a water pick. Get a water pick. Protect you from having stuff like food particles still left in your mouth, because that creates acidity in the mouth, because your body still thinks it's digesting. So when it thinks it's digesting, it's making the saliva more acidic to help you break down your food, prepare it to go into the stomach. So rinsing your mouth out with water, if I'm traveling and I don't have a water pick, I just take a big swish of water and I power swish through my teeth. I either swallow or I spit it out. That's the second. And the third one is, do not brush with anything that has vegetable glycerin, because vegetable glycerin sticks on your teeth, and it is actually, the consistency is like plaque. So it's sticky, it's sweet, and it actually it kind of just comes more plaque, because the plaque can stick on it. It's like plaque, which is sticky, right? So all the good toothpastes out there, like Veleda and Jason and Oramia and all these things, unfortunately, the second or third ingredient is vegetable glycerin, and it's just not great.
Wow. So these brands that people think, oh, they're alternative, healthy, holistic.
Way better than Colgate, that's for sure.
Well, what is in those, like, mainstream? We grew up using Aquafresh brands.
Oh, I know. I mean, if you look on the ingredient list, it's like a chemical warfare. I mean, from like food coloring to, I mean, look at Listerine, look at the ingredients. Listerine, it's like all the coloring and the alcohol and it's not a pretty picture. And, it's open mucosa, so it's faster in your system. That's why the sublingual tablets are one of the fastest way into your body. So if somebody says, well, we're doing fluoride only topical, in the mouth fluoride, there's nothing topical about it. Might as well swallow it, because you are.
Oh, right.
It's not topical.
Yeah, that's what my daughter's dentist always says to us when we refuse the fluoride.
Right. So anything in the mouth is systemic. Right. And it's systemically immediate. I mean, that's why homeopathy under the tongue, sublingual, anything under the tongue, because it goes faster into your system than swallowing a tablet. I mean, it's fast. So, shoving a child, a fluoride tray and then say, keep it in your mouth for a minute. I mean, you're swallowing intense amounts of fluoride.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do you want to go back to toothpastes and like a home care protocol? But first, I'm so curious, something that I have heard a lot about. I've never needed a root canal, so I've never looked into it, but I know that so many wise people strongly caution against them. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, and it's a tricky topic, because really, so for people that might not completely know what a root canal basically is often done when a cavity has gone into the nerve chamber, which means the nerve chamber itself is sterile. And if a cavity opens up the nerve chamber with decay, suddenly bacteria gets introduced into the nerve chamber and it's no longer sterile. And most of the time, if not 100%, the nerve will die, which means infection starts to set in as the nerve tissue starts to putrefy. And that's why so many people that have a tooth dying on them have intense pain, because suddenly you have this intense pressure in that tooth cavity, And if the body is really a good immune system, often it finds a way to drain that. So many people find suddenly a pimple on the outside, our buccal area, not the cheek itself, but on the outside of the gum on the tooth, suddenly has like a pimple and pus is draining out of it. That's a body helping itself drain the infection. And many times sometimes it's not clear which tooth it is. Many times what we do is we put a gutta percha, like this tiny little thing, into the little pimple. And it shows, we take an X-ray and it shows to which tooth it's going to, where the drainage hole is. And that's the tooth that's basically dying. And the root canal, what that means is it means we are taking with tiny little files, we're taking all, or trying to at least, most of the nerve tissue out of there, which leaves the chamber quote unquote empty. It's not empty. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to remove as much tissue material as we can. The problem with that is there's no way to sterilize a nerve chamber. So what's happening now is that you have basically, to not be gross, but basically you now have a little corpse in your mouth. You're having a dead tooth. No blood flow going through, no oxygen flow going through. So what happens is bacteria, remember we talked about those millions of tubules that have a fluid outward pressure. That is no longer happening. There is no live tissue anymore. So it's wide open to your mouth. So any bacteria can come in. And because there is no oxygen, that bacteria can very easily become anaerobic. And that's the whole work of Weston Price, of how he proved that he sterilized a root canal tooth. He pulverized it. And then he put some of that powder under the skin of a rabbit. And that rabbit basically died within a couple of weeks, showing of how intensely toxic that tooth became. And that's basically the big, huge question mark when it comes to root canaling teeth, especially when you have in mind that it is connected like a red string to an organ system.
Right. Well, what I remember hearing so much is that people who have had root canals have much higher incidences of cancer.
Right. Again, because it's a stagnation on a organ meridian.
Right.
So it's not
cancer elsewhere in the body, not, near the tooth.
Right. Because again, like the tooth is on one end of the string, the organ system is on the other end of the string. So they influence each other. What we do to the organ system through diet, lifestyle, has an effect on the tooth. And what we do to the tooth has an effect on the organ system. It's like the chicken and the egg. And so that's why it's become a big question mark in holistic dental practices. However, I feel like I am not point blank saying rip out everything in your mouth that is a root canal. There is ways of testing if it is a burden on the system. It's more important to see, okay, so the body is super intelligent and amazingly resourceful in terms of healing and balancing itself. So if somebody has a root canal sitting on, say, the lung and the large intestine meridian, and their digestive system is great, and they're doing celery juice, and they have found the diet that really works for them and doesn't put them into fight and flight, and they meditate, and they have a great lifestyle, I feel like the body can help itself. Often what I see is that the body, you can see it on X-ray, has literally created a little it's almost like a little sac that's holding on to the bacteria, has literally protected itself, and it's not creating symptoms. So like my mom, she had 3 root canals on lung, large intestine, and she did good because she had a fantastic lifestyle, and she was eating super well, and she was exercising. She's 83, no medication, no nothing. By the time she turned 70, she suddenly had one sinus infection after another. She had diarrhea for like almost 3 months straight. I said, Mom, this is the time we need to do something about those root canals. And I swear to you, we took those 3 root canals out, and within 2 days, all symptoms disappeared. So that's why I love this chart so much, because if you have a root canal, not in a frantic way, but in just in an aware way, keep in mind what organ system it sits on. And if that organ system suddenly starts to become chronic with some kind of imbalance, then I would say might be a good idea to extract that particular tooth.
Yeah, so this chart that you were referring to, like you said that your mom's root canals were on the lung, large intestine
Right.
meridian. So this chart is available at Patreon, and it just shows every tooth in the mouth and its corresponding organ, meridian system,
Right.
and then which parts of the body and like what physical and emotional symptoms can be manifested from that.
Right. Or not, it goes again, chicken and egg. For instance, if my mom, she's a war baby, so she was 12 years old before the war ended in Germany. So she, of course, had experienced a ton of fear. So she had a lot of cavities in her when she was a teenager. She started to have cavities in these teeth that are connected to kidney bladder. And uh, kidney bladder is like most of your incisors, like the front four teeth, tops and bottoms. That's the kidney bladder area. And so she, just with having so much fear in her system chronically, it then had an influence on the teeth. So it can be a chronic emotional state as well. It's not that the organ system gives you the emotion. It can be the other way around as well.
Makes sense.
So that's
Two-way
why it's
street.
not, yes, that's why house, we are not separate. All of it plays together. And
Okay,
many times you have no control over those kind of things, right? So that's why I say definitely brush your teeth, definitely use the water pick, definitely do everything you have control over to help your body. That's why doing dietary changes is still something that many of us do have control over, unless it's also a huge habitual thing, how you bring yourself comfort, then it becomes much more challenging. I mean, I know Karen Sanders once, in her very dry sense of humor, said, people, when in her consultations, she found that people rather move from one side of the country to another, change jobs, do all kind of crazy, challenging things before they want to change their diet, because many times it isn't very easy.
No.
Yeah. So,
Let's look at healing cavities, and I'm assuming this would also be a very nice place to touch on like optimal nutrition for dental health.
yeah, and that's another big. Oh, you know what? Before I go further, I want to finish off the root canal thing. So the root canal is such a tricky thing because there's really only one option. If you're not having the root canal, or you're wanting to take care of a root canal tooth that is creating problems, really the only other option is to extract it.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Why that is a problem is, for one, it could be cosmetic aesthetic. So what are you going to do once the tooth is gone, right? Or it could be a problem because it's the last tooth in your mouth back there and it's holding your bite equal. Or it would create chewing problems. So now you have to take a look at, what are my options? Bridge is not such a great option because you have to basically shave down the tooth left and right from the missing tooth to put a bridge on. Implant, which many people have the idea of having a titanium or zirconium post stuck in their bone, freaks them out. Or, and plus we're talking, all these things are super costly, right? So the options are, they're difficult, they're challenging for many people. We're talking thousands of dollars in most cases. Or people are, I mean, to me, one of the things that are really nice option are these partials that are just covering the false tooth, but it is something that you take in and out, So there is the bridge, there is the implant, and there is partials, or in a case of somebody losing all their teeth, dentures. And dentures can also be sitting on top of implants in core places where they can hold it. So there is a money issue, there is a aesthetic issue, there is a comfort issue. So there's a lot of things that you have to work with to cover something that now is gone. And that's why it's such a difficult thing, especially if it's, say, a tooth that is holding an entire bridge to it, and the person would lose the entire bridge of 4 teeth. So it's a big thing, and that becomes very person by person. It's not a blank, what can you do? It's literally, it's people call me up and I look at their situation and I go, so these are the issues, these are the choices you have, and what can you afford? What's in the best case for your overall health? So there's a lot of things that go way beyond just the mouth.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, okay, first of all, how can people find a dentist who might be willing to take a different approach to things, look holistically? And then if they can't, do you do consults? Like, I'm thinking
Right.
A lot of people listening to this are going to be like, oh my God, I need this.
Yeah, definitely. For one, people trust me because I have no financial, even if they're completely new to me, I have no financial gain by any of the options. And for me, I like to look at, does that put the person under complete financial overload? Not a great idea in my mind, does it leave them looking like the tooth fairy with no tooth up front? Like, what are their options that's the most kindest and gentlest to them? And many times what I find, unfortunately, is that many dentists don't give people all the options. They just basically give the most expensive option. And then person kill themselves to try to get there.
Right. Can I just interject here really quick too? In Nadine Artemis's book, Renegade Beauty, her chapter on dental health, she talks about a study that was done in which the same person went to a lot of different dentists. I forget the number, but it was like dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. And everyone gave a different diagnosis and set out a different treatment plan. So it's like we think the dentists are these experts and what they're telling us is the truth and this is our only option.
Yeah, exactly. It's so disappointing, I feel, because why are we not taking a bigger look? I mean, why not? I mean, when you see the person and they're saying just a simple filling is tough for them financially, why would you give them a treatment plan that is so beyond them? It's just going to put them into depression, Or in one case, a friend of mine that used up her entire inheritance. And then she ended up getting cancer because there was tons of root canals in there and they were definitely having a, you know what I mean? And it's like, wow, why are we not taking a bigger look at the person? And this is total tunnel vision, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, like all modern American medical care as well.
And I have to say, in defense of many dental professionals, that's how we are trained.
Yeah.
Unless somebody goes out there and, puts their neck on the line and gets an holistic training for many times, for holistic dentists to say, don't have fluoride, it's not a good thing. Literally, if you would sue them, they would automatically lose because they're not practicing standard. They're told they're practicing below standard. Mm-hmm. So somebody that's getting education and sticking their neck out to being holistically, actually, they're walking a bit of a dangerous path. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And they're doing it out of their conviction. So my hat goes off to all holistic dentists out there, no doubt, And I get why people are a little scared of saying no fluoride, because we're getting brainwashed about the fluoride issue, for instance, or mercury for that matter, or root canals for that matter.
Mm-hmm. There was sometime last year, I might be wrong about this, but I feel like it was in the Journal of the American Medical Association. It was in a big time medical journal. They came out with like a new study that showed that, yes, fluoride is super dangerous. It always has been. And they publicly backtracked their stance on fluoride. I'll try to find that to put it in the show notes.
What? The interesting thing is, the lawsuit against use of both mercury and fluoride has been many times won, but it still gets pushed under the carpet by the ADA because they are freaked out that they could get sued and all the dentists could get sued.
Yes.
And da, 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 da. But this has nothing to do with the people's health.
Right.
This has nothing to do with it,
Yeah. The ADA being the American Dental Association. I found it. It is JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. August of 2019 is fluoride potentially neurotoxic. Yep. Yesterday I started a new book, Plague of Corruption, and it's by Dr. Judy Mikovits, and the intro is by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he looks at the medical history of all the times when people knew there was a problem. They knew an ingredient or something was toxic, but industry stepped in and no, push that under the rug. We'll lose so much money, even though they knew it was killing people. And for me, as someone who speaks about vaccines openly and you know what I do, to see this larger historical arc of just how many times in American medical history and industrial history that has happened, it was mind-blowing.
Yeah. And when I went to dental school, to this day, nobody talks about that Europe, not a single country in Europe has fluoride in the water. Why?
Right. Because they know.
Most of the time, up to now, it's starting to change a little bit. But when I was a child, it's totally socialized. So the government pays for a lot of that. And it's down to money. In this case, though, it's not that Europe is so incredibly better. It's back down to the money, because they would have to pay for everything that fluoride instigates. You know what I mean?
Right. Whereas here, the pharmaceutical companies are like, awesome, we'd love to instigate all these health problems in you via, all these various practices in medicine and dentistry, so you can be dependent on us for your drugs that, mask the symptoms but don't help you heal in any way. Okay, so how can people find holistic dentists near them? And if they don't find one, do you do consultations, or how can they get guidance?
I do. I have, I'm always building on adding holistic dentists to my website. So right now I have practitioners, and some of them wouldn't even call themselves holistic. But really what you need to find is somebody that's personable. You need somebody where you feel like they're going to listen to you and they're going to make it work for you. So somebody that isn't completely married to their own viewpoint, so if you tell them, listen, I don't want fluoride, I don't want my kids to have fluoride, please make a note on my chart. So many of the dentists then go, every time you walk in, you get the third degree, of how this is you're totally neglecting your kids. And so you need to find somebody that's actually working with you, that says, you know what, I get it. If you're concerned about this, we will work with you. That's what you need. You need, ideally, actually, I even like dentists, they might not do holistic, but they do amazing work, because doing crowns, doing fillings, it's like doing Swiss watch underwater. You need somebody that's technically a genius. And if they work with you and they say, yes, we're not putting any kind of fluoride releasing material in your mouth, which a lot of the white fillings have. So especially in pediatric dentistry, you want to make sure that they don't use anything that's slow releasing of fluoride. And that they are not putting mercury fillings in your kid's mouth, because it goes so quickly. There's dentists that are doing a great job. I worked for a pediatric dentist for 7 years. He was fast, he was quick, and he put composite fillings in kids' mouth.
And is that what you recommend, composite fillings?
Yes, the white fillings for sure.
Yeah.
The white fillings are much, much harder to place, because they can't be placed in a wet area. The old silver-containing, mercury-containing fillings, you could literally slap them into the mouth and it was just fine. And that's what we had. That's the only thing we had for many, many generations. But now we have everything. We have everything that is much better. So there is no need ever to do any kind of mercury-containing filling. That just isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and some people still argue about mercury being toxic, which is crazy.
What universe is mercury in the mouth?
No. It's totally nuts. And when I was in high school, classmate's father died, and he had been a dentist, and he had given tons of mercury fillings, and he was alone, swimming in the Red Sea. My classmate and his family were in Tahoe, and he had a seizure and drowned. And it was from being exposed to all that mercury over all those years.
And early on so I started my career in 87. So early on, every single dentist I worked for was on antidepressants. And the whole thing was, and suicide rate was high. And the whole thing was, it's because it's so stressful. There's way more stressful stuff out there than being a dentist.
Yeah.
So no, that was not the reason. The reason was we were completely inundated with mercury vapor.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You have to remember that when we take out, there is also the difference between mercury safe and mercury free office. Mercury free office means that you are just not putting mercury in.
Oh, wow.
Mercury safe means that you are having total protocol in place for protecting your patients in the office from inhaling mercury vapor.
What about people who have mercury fillings in their teeth now? What should they do?
So again, it depends very much on the person's overall health. If they have chronic diseases going on, or the immune system is down, or just not up to par, or they're heavily constipated, I don't tell them to take mercury fillings out, because you don't have a good way of releasing it. I would say first get yourself in shape. And if you have to have something done, you definitely want to go to a dentist that protects you with like a rubber dam and a high, oh God, this is menopause. You forget the most simplest words. The high suction in the room and the ionizer in the room. And you will see actually dentists that take this serious, you will see them in full gas mask.
Right. So you're saying don't have them taken out if you are immune compromised or your body is weakened in any way, because you won't be able to detox properly?
Exactly, because you will get inundated, or even a little bit can put you in a place that can make you really sick. So first of all, you would make sure that you're pooping daily, that to do lots of vitamin C, like say, for instance, a filling breaks and you are immune compromised, and you have, I would say, high amounts of vitamin C. Make sure that you might even go on a cleanse, make sure that you're alkaline, that you're pooping, anything you can do. And then you would only take out that one tooth. And you would tell the person, please do not pulverize the tooth out with a drill, chunk it out, take big pieces out, So the least, really get protected, oxygen mask on, rubber dam, everything you can do. And in this case, you might even get intravenous vitamin C while you're sitting in the chair. If somebody, say, has cancer or is immune, you want to do everything you can to not get that toxic load even higher.
Right. Wow. So I found the dentist I go to now by searching for the term biological dentist. And I know they have a whole protocol in place for removing mercury fillings that's like that. And they also give homeopathic remedies to you after, depending on what you did. So that's another way, right, that people can find good dentists, is searching for biological dentists.
Yes. The only thing that's the tricky part is, and I always tell people, just pray. Pray to your angels to get the right person sent to you. Yeah. Because, there's only so many times you can get into a tooth before the nerve goes, whoa, that's it, So it has to be good dentistry. And to me, that's almost more important than somebody that's quote unquote a holistic dentist. You want those white fillings placed immaculate. They can't be leaking, because you're going to get decay if they're leaking, So I would also ask around and say, people that have had no problems after dental work has been done is a great way of saying that the dentist is probably really good.
Wow. Thank you. That's, I love that, going beyond the paradigm of they say holistic or biological and just looking at who's a good technical
exactly master. The technical part, as in Swiss watch underwater, is huge, especially with the white fillings.
Okay. Good to know.
So,
Both of mine are composite, and I think one of them, yeah, like came out at one point. There was a problem with it.
and that's a sign that for whatever reason, the person wasn't able to keep the area super dry, or they missed to go slow enough, because they have to be cured, that blue light that we shine on it, which is a particular frequency of turning the material hard. When we put the white stuff in, it's soft. It's like a cream kind of thing. And then we have to harden it with a particular blue frequency of light. And it becomes hard, super hard. But you have to do that slowly and in increments. Otherwise, there is shrinkage. I mean, those are very technically sensitive fillings.
Wow.
And mercury didn't used to be. I mean, not at all. There was not much to it.
Talking about me visiting this dentist reminds me of a short story I want to tell about the connection of all this. So, May of 2018, I traveled to the Good Medicine Confluence in Durango, Colorado, with my family and my 1-year-old at the time. And I taught 3 classes, and we flew, and I barely slept the whole time because my 1-year-old was like, where are we? And why are we going through airport security?
Yeah.
And it was super, super stressful. I was so depleted afterward. And I had already made an appointment to get this cavity filled, the one I got when I was pregnant, on like 2 days after we got home. So I got the cavity filled lower right back tooth, and within a week, erupted with shingles in the trigeminal nerve in my head, in my face. And I absolutely feel I was already susceptible. My immunity was super low after that trip, but there's something about like getting this work done right there that spurred the shingles to come out along that nerve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, tell me one person that isn't at least normal freaked out to sit in a dental chair.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like even me, who the person that I go to, I really trust them, I love them, I am having to do deep breathing. And I've seen my husband included, soaked, sweat soaked, So it's stressful. It's a really, you're in a helpless position. When you have all this stuff in your mouth, you suddenly feel like maybe you can't swallow or you can't breathe, or, it's a really hard thing to even sit in a chair.
Yeah.
So it's stressful on that level.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
By the way, before I forget, I do have a sweet little protocol to go when you go to the dentist, even if you go just to the hygienist. I take Arnica 30C when I walk in. I do Nux Vomica, like the vomit, Nux Vomica, 2 words, 30C, 4 pellets as I leave the office. And that apparently helps to release the trauma in the cells or what basically doesn't belong. So if it's a lot of stress sitting there, it helps the cellular memory to let it go.
That's awesome.
Nux 30C, 1 dose. And then Arnica, St. John's wort, homeopathically is great. And I tell people to do that after every visit.
Wow. Okay, so healing cavities. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I could just keep going. Healing cavities and nutrition, proper nutrition for bone health.
Okay. Right. So that is a super tricky one. Okay, a little story on my end. So for 20 years, here I am, holistic health, holistic dental. I taught Western Price for 20 years. And when I became perimenopausal, and especially when I hit menopause at like 55, 54.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you just briefly tell people who Weston A. Price was?
Oh, yes, of course. So Weston A. Price was a dentist, turn of the century. He basically traveled the world to find out the people that basically had no dental problems.
Because he noticed in like the 1920s and 30s, children in his practice here in America having really jacked up teeth that no previous generation that he'd seen had ever had. And he had a feeling, he had a hunch it was nutritionally based.
Exactly. So he traveled the world and he went to all these different places, and where he found the most healthiest teeth and mouth was the indigenous cultures, of course, indigenous people or people that pretty much still ate the indigenous foods that they were brought up and their grandfathers ate and all that. So he brought that back, and that wasn't just nutritional. He also did pretty much all the research on our different dental procedures and pretty much came forward with all his findings. And those findings were continuously swept under the rug by the ADA because a lot of it basically meant dentists wouldn't make any money.
Right. They wanted people eating this, highly refined, processed food diet because it makes our dental health worse.
Yep. And also the whole fluoride situation, all of it had more of a monetary, pharmaceutical intention behind it. It wasn't really the health intention, the health of the people, So he was pretty much ignored by mainstream. He made a huge comeback, I'd say at least in the last, as long as I've known, the last 30 years. So my story up to 5 years ago. I taught Weston Price and I taught the nutritional advice that was given. And so my own personal story, I became super sick. My sweetie thought I was going to actually die. And that was about 5 years ago, 55, 54. And what happened was nobody knew what was going on with me. My nervous system was on fire. I couldn't eat. I was losing literally 3 pounds a day. I was nauseous. I had a raging bladder infection. I had all these things going on and nobody knew. So this was 4 years ago, I literally was on my knees praying, like I became better, but it was very obvious that something was going on with my system, that my system was full of inflammation and I had no idea why. And Weston Price, I ate eggs, I ate dairy, I had some meat products, I had everything super organic, raw, the whole thing. And I became sicker. So a naturopath started to muscle test me and found out that I was highly allergic to dairy and even ghee. She put stuff next to me and it crashed and it made no sense to me. I'm like, what is going on? And finally, information came through my desk and I started reading it and it was like, oh my God, this could be me. And what I found out was, and I found out through my mom as well, is I had been exposed as a child to Epstein-Barr, and because I was very healthy, I had no symptoms, no nothing. So I had a viral overload situation going on, which took off when I went into menopause for many different reasons. It's also known as the stress virus. So what happened was, as I kept on doing my research, is I found out that eggs, dairy, gluten, and animal fats make a perfect environment for the Epstein-Barr virus. So I had to come off all the stuff that was feeding the virus. And the reason I'm even telling the story is it is extremely personal, meaning this is where the detective work comes in. Some people are getting better with the Weston Price right now, and many, many people are suddenly declining. Why? Probably because there is a virus on board, like herpes, Hep C, Hep B, Epstein-Barr, staph, strep. All these things have a viral.
Or and what happened? A retroviral infection, which is
yes.
stealth and quiet, and what that book, Plague of Corruption, is partly about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And the reason it is, for instance, Epstein-Barr, I'm a master on Epstein-Barr, is it can hang out in your liver for decades till it comes out when its environment is just perfect for it. And because I had 2 different stresses, a car accident, and I had given up the dairy, but was suddenly leaning on eggs because I had no dairy anymore. And egg is the number 1 food for Epstein-Barr. So I went from like the frying pan into the fire. I went from raging bladder infections, which stopped, to rheumatoid arthritis so bad that I couldn't pour tinctures anymore in my right hand. So when I gave all this up, all the symptoms disappeared. So dietary is really tricky at this point because it depends on what's on board. So if you have something like herpes or Epstein-Barr, which I have been told 3/4 of Americans have in all different kind of strength and intensity. So you have to find out what works for you. So if you're suddenly getting chronic stuff happening and mystery symptoms, something isn't working for you and you have to go and check it out and see. The way I did it is I just took one thing out at a time. Unfortunately, it can be really misleading because I took dairy out 8 months. I didn't have a bite of dairy. And after 8 months, finally, my system started to calm down. So that's the freaky thing. So if you have somebody that can muscle test you and help you with it, or a quantum machine, biofeedback machine to give you a bit of a startup. And by the way, I remembered 10 years ago, a friend of mine who has a quantum, that it said, I didn't want animal fats. And at that time I was like, what are you talking about? I couldn't eat meat, So now I do, like, when I have a craving for it, I have my wild salmon, I have my thing. The thing that I do stay away from is eggs completely because it just flares up my symptoms. But when I'm in Germany, I will have some dairy, but I'm going to be very sparingly with it. I don't have gluten anymore. I do anything that doesn't feed the viral situation for me. So that's why the pH strip paper can help, because it shows you where your pH is. If you have too much inflammation going on, that can mean there is a huge viral overload, because the virus does have a side product, which is a neurotoxin. And that's why I said with a viral overload, you can literally have any symptom. You can have literally MS. You can have literally any kind of nervous system condition. It can have tons of anxiety. My whole nervous system, my superficial nervous system was on fire. You know what I mean? So that's why the tricky thing with the viral situation, if you have a virus on board, you will have to take care of that through diet as well.
Everything I've ever heard about healing cavities is, nutrient dense animal fats.
Exactly. I was pretty freaked out when I was finding out that I needed to. Well, this is 5 years later. My gums have only gotten better and I have no cavities. So, and I'm a blood type O, if you want to even throw that into the mix, which you're supposed to have animal proteins. So the world is changing. Right. And the other thing is, what helps our body to protect from environmental toxins and heavy metals and all this kind of stuff is herbs and fruit and vegetables and salads. So I always tell people, if nothing else, make that 80% of your diet. And 20% of what you feel drawn to,
Mm-hmm. And I would think too, just the simple things that of course we should be doing, like having our bare feet on the earth and getting sunshine every day. And what you just said about the world is changing. I a few times on this podcast, I know, have referred back to this idea that I know Susan Weed at least was writing about in the 70s, that I feel like a lot of people were into when I was first getting into herbalism 15 years ago, which was like, just live like your grandmother did and you'll be fine. Stop overcomplicating things. And it's like, no, that does not work anymore. Like we have upset the balance of the planet and of our bodies too much, where you've got to overthink things. You've got to go down every rabbit hole to get yourself well again. You've got to try the things that you never thought you'd try. And it's big and it's going to be different for everyone.
Exactly. And, I would say in general diet guidelines, lean heavy on the fruits and the vegetables and the herbs, because they're all antiviral. And also they're super alkalizing, and water content, we're 80% water, you know what I mean? So that's as close to the body as it gets. And, you know, if you asked me 5 years ago about the whole vegan thing, I would say, oops, you know, that makes it very tricky. But if you are taking good spirulina every day and barley grass juice powder and stuff like this, let your body tell you, you know, I am mostly vegan, but I can't say I'm vegan because when I get a craving for it, I will absolutely eat my piece of salmon or my sardines or whatever, you know, or my little bit of some organic turkey. But my body isn't craving it. Your body is your master in that way. You'll know.
Yeah.
You know, you will know. The big thing is if the craving comes and you're not cleansed, that's why cleansing, I think, is pretty important. Then you have to ask yourself what's craving it, the virus who needs it to survive,
right, or
your body. So for me, I couldn't rely on my body to really listen to my cravings till I had done a couple of liver cleanses.
Oh.
And then I can tell, okay, this is my mind wanting to comfort. No, my body wants a salad. Doesn't want a turkey sandwich. It wants a salad. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, I was just going to ask about, because I don't want to forget, what is this like biofeedback quantum machine that you were talking about?
Oh, there is many biofeedback machines, which is basically muscle testing in a machine. I mean, that's totally not saying it correctly because there's way more going on. And good muscle testers, they can feel, your body doesn't lie. So for instance, when she found out that my body was super allergic to dairy, she put dairy next to me, and then I didn't even see it. My eyes were closed. And then she tested a certain muscle, and that muscle, for the hell of me, I couldn't keep my arm up.
Wow.
So the body responds weak. So it's totally sidestepped the mind, which I love, because the mind, we're so inundated with information, we don't even know anymore what's correct, you know, and what's correct for us. It's like a minefield to all the information. There's paleo, there's vegan, there's macrobiotic, there is fruits only. It's like, oh my God, you know.
Which is going back to like what we were just saying, like go back to nature, you know, eat the plants that grow out of the ground, get your bare feet and your hands in the earth and get some sunshine at the minimum, at the foundation of what you're doing.
Exactly. And then, you know, the body cannot, if something doesn't support it, it weakens. So when somebody does a muscle testing, they're basically testing the strength or the weakness of a muscle when it is exposed to a certain thing. And the body doesn't lie. Like you wouldn't know what it is. Like I had my eyes closed. I had no idea what she was testing, you know. Yeah. And she goes, oh my God, your body crashes if I put ghee next to you, which I cried. I love ghee.
Yeah, that's tragic.
You know, I was like, crap. So, you know, but I was eating for 10 years already. I was eating very Western price. I was everything raw. I mean, I was doing, and I was coming down with so much inflammation. I was like, okay, this isn't working, but why? You know? Yeah. So the whole viral situation made sense to me.
So many people are having these issues, everything that you're talking about, you know, the stealth viruses and,
And also because I was exposed to mercury.
Right.
It's number one yummy food for viruses.
Yes. And that's what Dr. Judy Mikovits writes about too, is if you have stealth virus, retroviral or not, in your body, it's usually a toxin exposure that awakens it.
And you know what? Look at our environment. Yeah. We are part of our environment. Our environment is toxic.
Yeah.
So we are all the time, like I always tell my people, I said, you know, get comfortable with the idea of doing a lengthy liver cleanse once a year to give your liver a complete rest and just allow it to cleanse itself. Because that's the other thing. Your liver has to store everything that it doesn't know what to do with, you know.
Right.
And if your liver is sluggish and full of that stuff, it can't absorb minerals and vitamins. It can't store it. So you'll show up as deficient. You can eat great stuff and you can have great supplements, all phytonutrients and stuff. But if the liver doesn't have any place to put it and store it because it's so full of stuff, you're going to show up and not being able to absorb it, you know?
Yeah. And I think too many people still think like, oh, I don't drink excessively, my liver's fine. And don't realize that it's like, no, it's like all of us have to really be on top of our liver health at this point.
And, you know, another point that definitely freaked me out and definitely was like, oh my God. I heard 3 years ago, and I do not remember her name. She was a marine biologist. And she said what she sees in the ocean going on is that not much coral in the ocean is building, and a lot of it is dying, which in my mind, compared to the body, is the bones, right? And she says because the oceans are becoming too acidic. Talk about a parallel to the human body, right?
Yeah. We're all just like holographic reflections of each other and of the whole.
Right. So yes, we need to give our body as much as we can so it can protect and deal. And it will if we give it what it needs, you know. And in my mind, fruit, vegetables, in summer when it's nice and warm, lots of raw salads, you know, smoothies. I throw my spirulina in. Oh, before I forget, 5 foods to help you to release heavy metals.
Yeah.
And I have done this now for 3 years because I was in dentistry for so long, you know. Spirulina. Vimergy is one of my favorite places for it. Vimergy, Vimergy company. Barley grass juice powder. Those two together right now give me pretty much the protein that I need. Spirulina has more protein than red meat. And I did not believe it, but 5 years later, I have to say, yes, it's true. I can get away with it. Dulse.
Wow.
Dulse holds onto the mercury and does not let go.
The seaweed.
The seaweed dulse. Yeah, I love it. I love the taste of it. I put it on everything. Dulse comes often with a warning on it that it contains mercury. And yes, that's true. But it's not a concern. Because as you eat dulse, it doesn't let go of the mercury. It just collects more out of your body. And you poop it out. And then the last, wild blueberry. Wild more important than normal blueberry. Because wild blueberry has it's one of the most adaptogenic foods on the planet.
Oh, wow.
Because it had to learn to deal with such harsh environments. So wild blueberry. And then the last one is cilantro. And those different foods take heavy metals out of different areas in the body, and it dulse, clumps it, holds onto the mercury, it doesn't let go, and you poop it out.
Yep. Good to know.
So those 5, and they have to be eaten within 24 hours.
Of what?
Of a day, within each other. I mean, so don't do cilantro one day, wild blueberry the other. Those 5 have to be eaten on the same day.
Oh, okay. So you're just going like for maximum effect.
Yeah. And I did in my smoothie every day, I put the wild blueberry, the spirulina, and the barley grass. So 3 are gone. And then cilantro I put on my salad, and the dulse I put on my anything.
Yeah.
Some rice or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And you're done. It's basically in my diet now. And then if you don't have all 5 every day, especially if you've done it for a while, that's fine.
Wow. Whew. It's just like too much good information. I'm so grateful. I'm already deciding too that I'm gonna make a resource list, you know, because you're just naming so many good things. We're gonna have to give people a visual for all of this.
Yeah. And I was supposed to speak at the New Living Expo, and of course it's gotten moved to October. But I am working on kind of just a 1 page where you have all the different pieces listed that are influencing the mouth in that way.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, really, you should write a book, really.
Believe me, once I moved to Nevada City, it's happening.
Oh, good. Good.
In blogs, I will have time to do some writing.
Okay, let's get into your home care protocol, the products that you make. Maybe, you know, we already kind of talked about problems with toothpaste, but just like what how did we all grow up? What are we doing wrong and what can we do right as far
Right.
as taking care of our oral health at home?
I mean, I think it kind of goes back to like big pharma, the toothpaste stuff that we got hooked on is just not in our best interest. And I can tell you a story. This was also now 20 years ago, actually, something like that. Anyways, when maybe not that long, when Colgate, when they came out with this anti-tartar control or tartar control, do you remember that?
No.
And they came out with like a new stronger toothpaste called tartar control. I think it was called tartar control. Anyways, I remember I brushed my teeth and shortly after my entire mouth peeled, like skin coming out of my mouth, and it's just getting harsher and harsher. And now on top of it, it's all about whitening and brightening. So what I see in even the good toothpaste is baking soda and salt and activated charcoal, hydrated silica, those kind of things that you find in like Jason and Veleda and Ormia. They are actually damaging the gums. So when I clean people's teeth, the kids already had gum recession because when you shove baking soda right on the gum line, you're going to hurt the little hairy attachments that are basically like rubber bands around the tooth. And then the gums shrink and you're suddenly starting to see tooth surface that's really supposed to be under the gums, which we call root surface or dentin, which is much softer than enamel. So, and then it creates sensitivity. And then, of course, conventional dentists will come at you and they go and throw fluoride back on you. So really doing one thing and is not brushing with anything abrasive twice a day is really important. And there is hardly a toothpaste out there that doesn't have abrasive stuff in it.
And what is the charcoal for whitening?
Yeah, but not to brush with. Like we have a stain removal kit, but you don't brush with it. You brush first, and then you put about a capsule worth of activated charcoal onto your teeth, and you can use a toothbrush to dab it on. But then you just leave it in your mouth and leave it there for 3 to 5 minutes. And of course, saliva starts to flow. It's going to get soupy. You're going to be swishing with it and leave it kind of more up front where the teeth are. If you do this every single day for 10 days, there'll be your tooth color minus all stain. It doesn't change the color. So to change the color, you have to come at it with something pretty acidic or caustic, really. It's what we use, hydrogen peroxide, which is really hard on your tooth structure.
It is. So all the strips are hydrogen peroxide, right? That people put on.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of people kind of get really sensitive teeth and gums because it's to make it super simple, it's almost a little bit like a cavity process. It pretty much makes the teeth pretty porous and it kind of breaks down minerals. And if somebody is really, they don't want to smile because they're so self-conscious, I'm like, go for it. Do the strips. Don't do any in-house treatment. That's the most intense. Do the strips, do only the top by itself and then the bottom by itself if you want to. And leave it off if there is some sensitivity. And then just take time. Give yourself a couple of weeks. And then don't do it ever again.
Wow, that's crazy.
I've met people that do it like every 2 months.
Oh my gosh, I know. And something that always strikes me too, I've tried those and I just can never stick with it after a night or two. But is that people their teeth are like glowing sometimes.
No,
I'm like, that doesn't look good.
It doesn't. And, I swear to you, I've worked for a dentist. He used to work in Beverly Hills and a lot of actors came and he showed me pictures. He said, doesn't this look good? I said, yeah. And he goes, you should have seen the person in normal life. It looked fake. It doesn't even look good. And of course, everybody's trying to compare themselves to like the white teeth on TV or something. But there's a big price to pay to make it look like that,
So you're saying that, first of all, you have a teeth whitening kit and that
Right. I call it a stain removal kit because it doesn't change the color. It just removes all stain. And basically you do it with the activated charcoal. I do the powder, not in the capsule, because the capsule often has magnesium stearate in it to make it flow easier. It's not good for you. It reduces teeth production. You don't want stuff with magnesium stearate. So just getting yourself some activated charcoal, and then I have a little, like the stain removal kit has like a little container where it's in there. And it has a toothbrush. It has a child's toothbrush, not to brush with it. But when you're swishing it out, often there is little, you see little activated charcoal in all the little corners. And the toothbrush is meant to brush it out with that. And then that takes off all stain. So that's pretty much a very easy, non-aggressive, gentle way of removing stain.
That's amazing.
And then I do it once a week to keep up on it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And then, what else for people's daily?
And then, so instead of toothpaste, that's the big thing. I created now 15 years ago what's called the one drop only. And I named it that because all day long I would say, just one drop. And it was like, oh my God, you really just put 1 or 2 drops on your wet, soft toothbrush. And it is full of minerals, magnesium, potassium, and calcium. And then I added everything organic. I added essential oil of myrrh, which we give to people with gum disease in Germany, and also essential oil of frankincense, which is great for an all-over body support. And then I added Himalayan salt solution, another 85 trace minerals. And then I added tons of flower essences and gem elixirs, and also Stargazer Lee's planetary essences into it.
I love that. We were just talking about Stargazer Lee before this call, and I'm sure she will end up being an upcoming guest. But for people who don't know, she's an amazing stargazer.
Yes, she is.
I have to interject and say that it is absolutely my favorite toothpaste ever. I think I got some from you at the Women's Herbal Symposium 10 years ago, but at some point forgot about it, and so have been. But I remembered what you taught me about all the other toothpaste sucking. So I have tried so many other kinds of toothpaste over the years, homemade ones, powders with the charcoal and the baking soda and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And my husband and I were always like, why isn't there just like a awesome, good, mineralizing, clean toothpaste? And then started using yours again a few months ago. And we're both, after the first time, he was like, I love this stuff. Get more.
Oh,
and I feel the same way.
And the cool thing is that I would say 9 out of 10 of my customers, when they come back to tell me about it, they saw the hygienist, and the hygienist most of the time says, whoa, what are you doing different? Mm-hmm. And that's why I end up having dentists carry my stuff as well, especially the holistic dentists here in the Bay Area, because they see the changes. Yeah. They do see that the teeth are cleaner. That's the cool thing about not having vegetable glycerin in it, because it doesn't leave a smear layer. So it actually teaches you how to brush better too. Mm-hmm. After you finish brushing with it, it does foam. You rinse out, of course, and then put your tongue and kind of guide your tongue all over your teeth, inside and out. And it should feel like glass.
Yep, it does.
Perfect. And if it feels there is some fuzziness left behind, it actually shows you that you have left plaque behind. So then go back. You don't have to put more stuff on it, but go back and brush a little longer to make sure that all the plaque is off.
Wow. And what about floss brands? Like, you're recommending the Waterpik, which my 13-year-old has been asking for one, and I'm like, okay, I need to get one.
Yeah, I love the Waterpik. The Europeans Waterpik, the Americans floss kind of thing. People that have a really hard time flossing, I tell them, okay, just do the Waterpik every day. And it seems to be doing a very similar thing. My favorite floss is the Dr. Tongue's floss, just simply because, for one, it doesn't have yucky stuff covered on it. 2, it goes through the tight spots and stays small. And then once you're through the tight spot, it expands. So you're actually flossing a larger area. Oh. And they also just came out with a activated charcoal floss, which not so easy for me because I have such tight contacts. But the packaging, I love the packaging. It's all like in... it looks like a craft paper packaging. Mm-hmm. And the one that I use, the cardamom flavored floss, is still in plastic, and I so wish that they're changing that. But that's the better one. So they have right now two. They have the cardamom floss and they have the activated charcoal floss. The activated charcoal floss is in a better packaging, but it really is only good for people that have pretty normal spacing and are not super tight.
What about
I love that.
Gentle floss?
Gentle floss. Is that the silk floss?
No, it's got, first of all, it comes in totally like biodegradable packaging, and it says at least, there's no added waxes or anything.
I know. I loved it. That was what I had before.
Yeah.
The only difference is it's because of my tight contacts, I love the wider.
Yeah.
Like it's just easier on my gums.
Okay. Yeah, I love Gentle Floss. I've been using it forever.
Yeah, that's a good brand. I used that before.
And what about, so you taught me at the symposium about oil pulling, which I had never heard about before. I absolutely loved that information. I did it for years and years. The only reason I don't do it now is because I have a young child, and there's just, you are not allowed to not talk.
It's right. I could say anything I wanted to my mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. She did it for like 30 years. Actually, I don't do it anymore either.
I was wondering.
I now gargle with my celery juice. And I don't do it 20 minutes. I just gargle before I swallow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I seem to have really good gums. So I now I do so much in the morning, making the celery juice, cleaning the thing up, I was suddenly drawn to not do that anymore. See, I trust people's guidance system. If people feel drawn to it and it makes them feel good, I'm like, go for it. If they don't have the time and they go, whoa, 20 minutes in the morning, I don't know where I'm going to do that. I would have to get up at 4 o'clock. I'm like, forget about it. Do celery, do water picking, do something else that works in your time. I mean, I have found my mom still does it. I don't. And we seem to be both fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved it. And, I felt different afterwards. What really got me is that like that morning breath that you wake up with is gone when you spit the oil out after 20 minutes. It's like something's happening here. Something is actually getting pulled out.
Yeah. And the thing is, you do have to do it 15 to 20 minutes. Otherwise, it's really not doing what it's supposed to do.
Right.
I mean, I always love experimenting with myself. I feel like the proof is in the pudding is the best way to go about it. Try and gargle with some celery juice and see how you find after. Because celery juice you're supposed to do first thing in the morning or second thing. I do lemon water first, and then half an hour later I do celery. And I find it seems to be just as good, and it doesn't take me as long.
Awesome. I can do that.
Yeah, like something that you can swallow and talk and do things with, and just see veggie juices. And it's just plain celery, nothing mixed with it, no cucumber, no nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done it before and really liked it. So you have your 1 drop only dental soaps. And I wanted to say...
I also have the rinse.
Yes, that's where I was going to. But you mentioned that the 1 drop only foams, and that's really nice, especially because people are used to the Aquafresh and the Colgate having a certain feel to it. So it's nice that this kind of does too, because no other natural toothpaste that I've tried have that.
Exactly. It's a little bit the same as like when I use a shampoo and it doesn't foam. And it's something that's just not quite as pleasurable. Like it needs to be a little something. And so the 1 drop only is just geared to bring circulation to the gums, to harden teeth, to leave no smear layer behind, and basically strengthen and tighten up the gums. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, as we talked about, how the mouth is so connected to everything else. So the flower essences and the gem elixirs and the planetary essences, the vibrational medicines in there, are more geared towards like the 5th energy center, flower essences that are helping you to express and to communicate and to become aware of where you don't keep your word to yourself or others. To me, flower essences are like medicine of the mind or medicine for the emotions. It's a different imprint.
Yeah.
And
Story
so
medicine.
And so I love putting them pretty much into all my medicines. I love playing with the flower beings in that way.
I mean, truly holistic.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the dental rinse is like a Listerine substitute with no
exactly
dye.
Exactly. So it's 5 herbal extractions and 5 essential oils. So the herbal extractions are neem, sage, chamomile, white oak bark, which is also hardening. So we have the minerals in the 1 drop only to harden your teeth, and we have the white oak bark as an herb in the rinse to harden your teeth. So I wanted to do it minerals and herbal. So really it's a 1-2 step, and not everybody has to do 1 or 2 or wants to do 1 or 2. The dental soap by itself is really everything. But if you have some little extra issues or you have a dry mouth, then I highly recommend the rinse, because it helps you to protect you at night from a dry mouth. So it helps you to not accrue so much plaque at night. And then, of course, you can just put 1 drop in your mouth to freshen up your mouth, you know.
It looks like myrrh is the 5th extract.
Myrrh, thank you. I was wondering about that one. Myrrh. And the essential oils are tea tree, thyme, fennel, cinnamon, and clove. So it really smells nice.
Yes, it does. And then you also have salves, bitters. It's beyond the dental care.
Yeah, and because, again, the mouth is just a entry into health. I have everything. I have, obviously, digestive care, which is the Swedish bitters. Is the old, still original recipe from 1538. I have to import 4 of the herbs from my dad's pharmacy in Germany.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a 10 herb formula, and goes great together with a little ginger tea. I love putting tinctures into hot, so a little bit of the alcohol gets evaporated.
All right.
And then we have also a lot of nervous system tonics. You know, we have the California poppy for pain and sleeping. We have the St. John's wort. All of them are fresh, organic, of course. Then we have the ashwagandha as a adaptogen. We have the holy basil and the divinely tulsi tea. We have 4 teas right now. We have an amazing elderberry. This is a woman, a friend of mine. She's a naturopath, and she's no longer playing as being a doctor. She's just doing elderberry. We call her the elderberry whisperer. She has a pure wild elderberry from the Cascade, Washington mountains. And then she goes back in winter and plants more bushes in the wild.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that product is amazing. So
is that a tea or a tincture?
It's nothing. It's neither. It's a pure extract.
Okay.
Just elderberry. Because so much of the elderberry comes with sugar and syrup. And she has one with a little bit of honey for kids and stuff. But then she also has the unsweetened, which is just pure elderberry and nothing else.
Amazing.
So we have a lot of, when people come to me for take a look at my mouth, then I have support tinctures to help. Because herbs are amazing. I mean, if you need to help yourself to come back to balance, herbs truly are amazing.
I see. It's this Dr. Appleseed's elderberry extract.
Yes.
So is it like a paste?
No, it's more liquidy than that. I mean, once you open it, you put it in the fridge. And I take about a half a teaspoon a day.
Oh, that looks amazing.
It's really nice. And of course, we have the salves. We have an all-heal salve for bruising and eczema and whatnot. And we have a Calendula Plus salve, which is a bit more geared towards the face. But say, for instance, going out in snow or on the water or after sun, it's not something I would use every day for a moisturizer. It's more an intense healing salve for weather or nature exposure.
And that's the one in the little tube that you can just apply directly.
Actually, those are just smaller sizes.
Oh, okay. And you do have sample sizes for
those
anyone
are
who wants
exactly
that.
They're like a lip balm sample size, and we're trying to get away from all plastic, so we put them into that craft tubes, which seems to work. So what else? I have, of course, turmeric and ginger and a lot of different tinctures to just help with bringing the body back to to balance.
Yeah, and it's all at rupamherbals.com.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll of course put the link in the show notes. And yeah, is there anything else, anywhere else people can find you? Any events you have upcoming, possibly?
Yeah, I have obviously I have a lot of stores carry for me, like the Good Earth here in the Bay Area, Fairfax and Mill Valley, the Natural Food Company in El Cerrito, different dentists. Somehow my retailers have left my website. I don't know what that happened, but I'm gonna bring that back so people can see where they can get it. The Briar Patch in Grass Valley will carry at least the dental line for right now.
Yay.
Yay. um, let's see. I am at the markets in Oakland on Saturday from 9 to 2, in San Rafael at the Civic Center on Sunday from 8 to 1. Right now, because of the situation, we are pretty much good weather people. If it's bad weather, raining and windy, we're not going. And in that case, for Bay Area customers, we have free shipping. So yeah, if people want to be in contact with me and getting all the updates, they should sign up on the newsletter. So we have the shout outs that will go to them.
And what if someone listening really wants a consultation with you?
The best thing is to just call me and set something up. And I do 90% on the phone or Zoom anyway. So right now, that's totally doable.
Okay, great. And you have a contact page, of course, on your website with that info.
And if it is dental, the thing that I need x-rays. So they would need to contact a dentist and have them email the x-rays. Most of them are digital anyway, so it's not a big deal. I actually tell people x-rays are legally yours. So when anybody ever takes an x-ray, if somebody does it for me, I immediately have the receptionist send those x-rays to my email. So I have them to share and I don't have to bother them when I need it.
Mm-hmm. Good idea. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Rupam, for this 2-hour conversation. This is the longest interview I've ever recorded, and I can't wait to re-listen and take notes. And I'm just so grateful for you sharing information that everyone needs and most of us don't have.
You are so welcome. My pleasure. And then hopefully I get to see you in person sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Being your neighbor.
Yep. Yay.
Yay. Yeah.
Thank you for taking these medicine stories in. I hope they inspire you to keep walking the mythic path of your own unfolding self. I love sharing information and will always put any relevant links in the show notes. You can find past episodes, my blog, and our handmade herbal medicines at mythicmedicine.love. We've got reishi, lion's mane, elderberry, mugwort, yarrow, redwood, body oils, an amazing sleep medicine, heart medicine, earth essences, so much more than I can list there. mythicmedicine.love. While you're there, check out my quiz, Which Healing Herb is Your Spirit Medicine? It's fun and lighthearted, but the results are really in-depth and designed to bring you into closer alignment with both the medicine that you're in need of and the medicine that you already carry and can bring to others. If you love the show, please consider supporting it at patreon.com/medicine stories. It is so worth your while. There are dozens and dozens of killer rewards there, and I've been told by many folks that it's the best Patreon out there. We've got ebooks, downloadable PDFs, bonus interviews, guided meditations, giveaways, resource guides, links to online learning, and behind the scenes stuff, and just so much more. The best of it is available at the $2 a month level. Thank you. And please subscribe on whichever app you use. Just click that little subscribe button and review on iTunes. It's so helpful. And if you do that, you just may be featured in a listener spotlight in the future. The music that opens the show is by Marie Sue. That's Mariee Sioux from her beautiful song, Wild Eyes. Thank you, Marie. And thanks to you all. I look forward to next time.